um, it was really, really a blessing to hear that. And thank you for your kind words. I really appreciate that. I develop my puppet characters in a lot of different ways. Sometimes you'll see a puppet character and and it'll be walking by you at the airport. No, I'm just kidding. No,
No, I get that as a puppet builder. You tend to
right?
people watch, yeah.
You people watch. And I think, I developed one character. His name was Danny, and he kind of had a stereotypical little puppet voice, that kind of thing. And then basically I tried to find different characters that would be different vocally than that character. So, I would do Baby Mickey's oldest brother. People are always shocked that that voice comes out of me. Hey, how you doing? You doing all right?
Right.
or hey, doing well, or that's again been part of the fun for me when I'm developing new characters. I saw somebody ask that question.
Yeah. We have another comment from John and Crystal McLennan. They said, we saw you perform several years ago at the Children's Pastors Conference in Orlando. We love Nana.
Oh, yeah. The CPC. Oh, my goodness. The Children's Pastors Conference. They were so kind to me. I had the opportunity to MC that for many, many years with Kurt Jarvis and some really, really great people. That connected me. The Children's Pastors Conference connected me to be able to work with the Billy Graham folks for a summer and to do their thing. I think it was called Kids Fest, and then to go to a host of different churches and mission journeys and trips, and to be able to talk about God and the difference that Jesus had made in my life. And so CPC, that's awesome. I have fantastic memories about that.
Well, it's interesting, Dennis, because you had talked a little bit about Nana Puddin and his older brother, but where did you get the idea for having monkeys in your show? Because that's become a staple for you and what people know you as.
Well, the truth of it is, I kept telling my mother when I was a little boy, I want a monkey, like a real monkey.
Okay.
And she was like, you are not getting a real monkey. Those things are nasty and they're hard to take care of and blah, 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 blah. And so it was a natural outgrowth for me to then want a monkey puppet, and Sesame Street was really just coming into its own, and soft-sided characters were friendly and they were non-threatening to a child, because sometimes if you bring out a wooden slot-jawed character, little kids in the front row are like, they want to run and hide underneath something. Because, and I had a wooden character that was my staple. His name is Danny, but unfortunately he had red hair and freckles and resembled Chucky. Please don't tell Danny I said that. But
Danny got an early retirement.
He had to take a little break. But so puppets, the monkey puppets came about that way. And then really how I got the name Nana Puddin was I had an aunt on my mother's side, Aunt Mary. And whenever we'd go to visit our family, my mom's family lived in Gainesville, Texas. And my dad's family lived in Thackerville. So they were just like Thackerville, Oklahoma, which is like right across the board from Gainesville, Texas, for those of you who don't know. And when I'd go to visit, I would love my grandmother's banana pudding. But being from the South, we called it Nanner Puddin. Nanner Puddin, right?
Right.
So when I was trying to think of something different, the year I went back to the Ventriloquist convention, and I was trying to come up with something new. It's an Amber Alert. Okay. I think it's gone now, but I hope the child's okay. An Amber Alert came up on my phone.
Yeah, same here.
Whenever I went back to the Ventriloquist convention, I thought, I'll have a big monkey and he'll be Nick, that voice. Hey, how you doing? He's going to kind of be a punk rocker, kind of edgy. I had a good friend named Tony Wilcox that was edgy and kind of a rocker. And I patterned Nick the Punk Monk after him. Anyway, and I thought he'll have a little brother, and his little brother won't eat bananas because he's a baby. What will he eat? He'll eat smushed up bananas. And I thought, ooh, that's gross. And then I thought, oh, he'll eat banana pudding. And then really, because being a ventriloquist, saying banana
Mm-hmm.
pudding, well, good grief, why don't you just, jump off a building? I mean, that's hard to say, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was a natural outgrowth to call him Nana Puddin, to cut off and being from the South, that's what happened. When I would perform in the North or in Canada or other parts of the world, people would say, is your show about a grandmother? Because Nana, they would think. And I'd say, no, it's about these monkeys that like banana pudding, but they call it Nana Puddin. And the weird thing was, this is the truth. It's weird how God works in your life and how you might think something is just something that's, kind of a throwaway or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
When I did the Nana Puddin bit at the ventriloquist convention,
Mm-hmm.
and then I started doing that little bit as a part of my program, the Nana Puddin. Then I would be at the mall, or I would be at a church, or I would be at a school, and people wouldn't say, "Oh, there's Dennis Lee." I'd hear, Nana Puddin. I'd hear, I'd hear somebody, and I'd be like, that's me.
Oh,
and so
man.
it stuck. Literally, it stuck. It was one of those things that fell out of the sky again, miraculously. And then it became what people called me. They would call me the monkey guy, and then the monkey guy turned into the funky monkey guy, and then it turned into literally all that fell away, and people would just say, "Oh yeah, that's the Nana Puddin Guy," and so yeah, that's kind of how that happened.
That's super neat. So I'm curious. You talked a little bit how you transitioned from using your character Danny to the soft puppets, which are really big right now. But what was the process like for you when you had attended convention before? Were you familiar with Verna's work, or how was that? Because Verna Finley did most of your beginner characters. Yes,
Verna Finley, and then Marianne Taylor did after Verna passed away. Then Marianne Taylor did some of my key characters, but Verna was the one, and basically I got her name from Jeff Dunham. She was awesome and she's great, and then I went to the ventriloquist convention, and the year that I did not win, that I got fourth place with my little wooden character, and I bought an elderly, kind of aristocratic looking older woman, and we called her Aunt Grace, named after my Aunt Mamie Grace. Because if you know me and I love you, you're going to be immortalized in foam. So anyway, I did get a Verna Finley character, Aunt Grace. I remember paying for and thinking, oh my gosh, it wasn't that it was so expensive. It was just expensive to me at that time.
Right.
I was thinking, wow. And then the fun that I had with that soft character, and then the big gorilla Nick, and he has morphed over the years, as well as my Nana Puddin character has morphed over the years. And then I met, Marianne Taylor, and she has just always been such a creative friend of ventriloquist. And then I met this kid at the school named Landon Harvey. And I saw some of his work, and I said, you are going to make I want you to make my next Nana Puddin character. And you did. And
that was an honor, by the way. It was,
well, listen, I've told you this to your face, and I'll tell it right here on your channel. You are a gifted young man. Not only are you a gifted ventriloquist and performer, but your creation and your character creations are one of a kind. I mean, they're sturdy. Your hands fit in them and just perfectly. I mean, you took so much time to get the face of my character just right, and I would just all of it, Landon. And I'm not just blowing smoke just because I'm on your show. You know how I am. If I didn't have something nice to say, I'd just be quiet. I'd just be like.
I remember when you were talking to, it was my end of the year showcase for ISM, and you had attended that celebration, and I did a mini lecture as well. And you were talking to, I believe it was one of my teachers, and when you were saying, yeah, he told me that he built puppets, and I said, okay, yeah, that's great. And then he showed me his work, and I was like, wow.
Right.
And that's why
that's the truth
of that moment. I always have to show people, like, I have to show you what I mean by I build puppets, because people suppose, oh, you build like hand puppets and you trace the pattern. It's so much more.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Landon, because people don't understand what an art And not everybody that says I'm a puppet maker, not everyone has your gift. I mean, first of all, you've got your characters have a unique look. I love, they have a cartooniness to them that just reads so well, whether it's adults or to children, or whether it's television or far away on a stage. And that's all those things are really, really super important. And then I remember the care that you took when you were making my Nana Puddin character, which is my namesake. I use him solely, the one that you made for me, I use him solely for YouTube because I wanted him to be clean and crisp and look great. And I just, I can't say enough about you have quite an art form. So yeah, it is hard sometimes to explain to people what it is that you do. I'm a puppet maker. It's kind of the same thing as whenever I would go to a party or when I was dating, people would say, "What do you do?" I never would say I'm a ventriloquist. Never, because I just didn't think that was very sexy.
Yeah.
I'm a ventriloquist. But I would always kind of soften that and then work people into the fact that I was a ventriloquist because it was hard to explain.
Yeah, you say ventriloquist, and everyone has this narrow concept of what a ventriloquist is. What they don't realize that there's so many different forms of performing it, and so you're like, I have to really show you, or you have to see what I do.
Yeah, and not only that, but how ventriloquism is. People are really, really good at it, or they're not really good at it, and there's not a lot of background. And then because of that, then when you say I'm a ventriloquist, people want to pat you on the head and go, "Oh, well, but what do you do for your real job?"
You're like, oh, so that's one of your hobbies.
Right. Yeah. And it is. Let me tell you, it is my hobby. And what is it that someone has said? If you do something that you love, you'll never work a day in your life. I don't know if that's exactly the quote, but
that's it, yeah.
But that is the way I feel. Don't get me wrong. There have been, there were grueling days on the road. There were grueling days when we were doing and taping the Nana Puddin show. Just ask Nancy Wooster, my friend, who I'm still good buddies with. There were grueling, days in the sun, or blah blah blah, or long hours or whatever. But we loved it. And that's the difference. I still love, I love it. I love talking to children. I love making people laugh. I love how it makes me feel. I adore the process. I like from the beginning of putting a show together to the ending of how it has morphed and changed. I like writing the music for it. I like putting the costumes and the colors together. I just, literally, it has been one of those things that very few people can probably say, and that is, I love my job. I mean, I don't even really think of it like a job. I love it. It's been a blast, and I'm not finished yet. Still got stuff to say.
Still got many more ideas and for future shows and creativity. Well, I'm curious because earlier you had answered one of our viewers' questions about I think it was something about the voice or something about creating a character. Could you talk a little bit about your process for adding a new character to your show and how you determine if you want to have something custom made or take something that's already out there and make it your own?
That's a great question. The first thing I would say is about when something is your staple, your core character, like Nana Puddin and his brother Nick, those characters had to be unique and one of a kind. I didn't know how important that was, the licensing about that, the trademarking of that, the not selling of the intellectual property rights to Nana Puddin and his brother Nick. But I made sure that I surrounded myself with people who did understand how important that was. And so Verna Finley, when she made my first Nana Puddin character and the brother Nick, she promised me, and that they would be one of a kind. And that was really, really super important because then it went into television and then it kind of became my thing. And then, people associated me with Nana Puddin, the character. So it had to be mine and uniquely mine. And then what happens is I do buy some stock characters, like Axtel. They have characters that they will duplicate and sell, and I love some of those Axtel characters. I mean, oh my gosh,
and his company, they do amazing work. Yeah,
right. I mean, amazing, and the bang for the buck is just. I mean, extraordinary, extraordinary. So if I'm doing a show, let's say, okay, let's take the show that I did last year. Last year's show was called The Great Jungle Jam. And I didn't want it to just be about jungle characters, because I try to think outside the box so that when somebody hears the name, they might think, oh, it's going to have lion print and leopard print and blah, 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 blah. And it's going to be about banana trees and blah, blah. And it wasn't about that at all. It was about things that were black and white and how you bring color to your life in the Great Jungle Jam. Right. And so I had a character that I bought from Axtel just to use over the top of the screen. That I go back and get a new character and then would come back and do the show out in front of the screen with the other props. And I loved that character. So sometimes it just depends on my need, and it also depends on my budget, because, people are not made of money, and, you've got to be careful about that. Also, I think sometimes ventriloquists maybe spread themselves a little too thin. Okay. I had one character. His name was Danny. I had that character that I got from Mayor Ventriloquist Studios. Chuck Jackson, my mom and dad got him for me. It cost a lot of money, and it was beautifully handcrafted and done. Clinton Detweiler helped my mom and dad pick it out, the whole 9 yards. Wow. Yeah, and that character, I did that character for 8 years. 8 years. He was all I did. 8 years of Dennis and Danny. So I had that character down, and so when I had to lay him down because he looked too much like Chucky, that was like a death in my family. I mean, well, not quite, but it was like grieving the loss of a character. Yeah. So I embodied that character and his voice and his mannerisms into a different character that was soft-sided and more child-friendly. But what doing one character for 8 years taught me was that, oh my gosh, that I've got that down. I've got his mannerisms. I've got the way his vocal inflections. I don't even think about the back and forth conversation. It's not like it's so scripted. People always say, do you write your scripts? I'm like, well, yeah, I write my scripts. Well, it appears off the cuff. Well, yeah, it does appear off the cuff because I wanted to be conversational. I wanted it to be lifelike. And so I worked really super hard at that. And so it's not, and that just comes with practice and age and experience. But to answer the question, Danny, the character I used for 8 years, it wasn't until I went to the ventriloquist convention and I saw that I was kind of the dime a dozen ventriloquist that I said, I got to do something different if I'm going to stay in this and still love it and not feel bad about my art. And so I created the Big Brother Nick, and the best thing that I could do was to come up with a deeper voice that people wouldn't expect to come out of me, which, when you hear this out of me, you really do not think that it's coming from me.
But if you heard this from me, you would think that this kind of voice would be more like what you would hear from me,
Yeah. And so I worked on doing the other character. And when I work it into a show, I spend hours talking that way in the car when nobody is looking. I would spend hours just kind of talking to a friend and going, what do you think about this? If the monkey says, hey, man, you like my hair? Don't touch it. What? Or to come up with a catchphrase for that character, because that was important. It's like having a hook line in a song. A song that's got a really good hook. You're like, oh, wow, I can't get enough of singing that. I sing it over and over, shake it off, whatever. And it's the same way with ventriloquism, with coming up with the character. When you come up with a mannerism or something that your character does or something your character says, it gives people the opportunity to love them as much as you do. So that's kind of how that process works for me. It is not something that I just go, oh, I need a lion puppet. and then I put it immediately in the next show. And let me tell you, for all the people who are ventriloquists, all of my friends can tell you that are close to me, it makes me nervous, and I still get unnerved when I'm working with a new character. Landon, the truth of the matter is, when you made my pristine, fantastic, extraordinary new Nana Puddin Company from Original Dummy Works, it took me a while to get comfortable with the fact that, well, you're not him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Because the comfort level is something that the only way to get comfortable is to put that thing on your arm and do it over and over and over and over. And now, if you tried to take my Original Dummy Works Nana Puddin character from me, I would be like, you can't. No, I don't want any other character. He's it. You know, because you get when you have something that is artistically what you're looking for, and the fact that you're a ventriloquist and you're a great artist as far as caricature and puppetry and the creation of the character.
Sure.
Wow. You know, that is like handing a pianist a fantastic, extraordinary grand piano. I mean, they may have worked their whole life playing on a little upright at their house, but if they're handed this fantastic new piano, then it makes you play better. It makes you feel better, but it takes you a while to get comfortable going from your upright to the grand piano on a big stage. So I don't when people say, do you still get nervous? I'm like, oh my goodness, yes. If you're not nervous, there's something wrong. You know, I still, of course, I got nervous before I was going to just talk to you tonight, and I know you.
Well, I'm curious. Could you talk about how when I built the new version of your character, it was a whole different feeling that you had to get used to, because you had the other Nana Puddin for it's as old as me. It's almost 20 years old, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you had used that puppet to its full capacity.
Absolutely. I had, and not only that, but I had 3 other ones that, because we did television work, and when you're doing television work, oh my goodness, and my characters changed clothes, which that was a mistake. But anyway, Nancy Wooster, she was always like, I don't put clothes on my puppets because they're animals, and that's a pain. But
I can imagine her saying that.
I think I won her over in the end. I think I won her over, and she dresses up Waco and Larry. But anyway, the dressing the character for different scenes that you were shooting, like all the kitchen scenes you were going to shoot on a week worth of footage. That means that if the character was in a Western shot, that he had to have that costume on. And then you had to have multiple characters. And the thing is, you get comfortable with the feel of the character and the smell of the character and the way that it looks. And it really is a feeling of comfort, you know, a security about not freaking out when you get on stage because you've got new songs or you got new whatever. And but I got to tell you, once you dive in and you kind of start swimming, you figure out what works and what doesn't work. And let me tell you, I love my new Nana Puddin character. Love.
Well, could you talk about your favorite show memory?
Oh, wow. Wow, that's a really hard question. The favorite show memory, like of all time,
or one of your top favorites.
Yeah, I think probably it would have to do with there've definitely been some show memories that I will never forget, like Verna Finley. I rushed her. I hurried her up to get this new Nick character, the Big Brother character for me. And she said, you know, she had this beautiful accent. She was like, Dennis, I hurry him to you, you know, blah, blah, blah. So he gets to me and I'm going to take him to this camp and use him immediately for this youth camp. Yeah. And while I'm on stage doing the program for this youth camp, the audience starts just laughing. And I'm like, okay, what are they laughing at? I mean, like, kind of not with me, kind of like at me a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm, there's a difference. And I'm
Right.
thinking,
Yeah.
what? And and I looked down, and the arm that was furthest from me had fallen off.
Oh no.
She told me that she had pinned, because she was rushing to get it to me.
Right.
So she had pinned, and she had stuffed, stitched all of the other pieces that she did by hand, except for this arm. And how I made it that far without it falling off, I have no idea. I guess the pin was in fairly good or whatever. But anyway, his arm fell off, and the audience was laughing. And then all I could think to say was, I've heard of disarmament, but this is ridiculous. And of course, they just thought it was part of the show. And then I picked his arm up, and I finished the bit, and had him in pain. And then the rest of the camp, I went to the nurse, and she got me an arm sling. And so we put his arm in a sling. And so the rest of the camp, it was this whole deal about how his arm is still, it's okay, but and I mean, we'd be at lunch, and the youth would be like, "How's his arm?" So
I love that though. You stayed in the moment, and you went with it, and you didn't let it overcome you. You turned it into part of the bit, and I love that. It's like prove that you're a seasoned pro. Yeah.
Well, one of the things I've definitely learned is this. I don't want my performance experience to be painful. I don't want any experience to be painful. Unfortunately, sometimes discomfort and hard times are sometimes a part of your life. They are. It's, you can't have all sunshine. Sometimes you're going to have some nighttime, and sometimes you're going to have rain. But one of the things that I learned, if you're prepared as you can be, there's always going to be something that's going to happen. Always. A heckler, or a child throws up on your shoes, or, a helicopter flies by, a horn that honks. If you're outside, it's so hot, a bug flies in your mouth. I mean, Lord, there's a zillion things that can go wrong. Your mic doesn't work. They don't play the correct song. That's back when I used to use somebody besides my own sound man. And if you let it freak you out, first thing, it hurts your audience, but it hurts you. It's just a miserable feeling. It's one of the things that I learned. Not that I haven't had things that flopped. Absolutely, I've had ideas or gags or things that I thought were going to be so funny, and they just went, and so I try them in front of a couple of audiences, and then if they continue to fail, then I go, Dennis, okay, that you thought it was funny, but nobody else thinks it's funny. And sometimes I have kind of a odd sense of humor, but letting something just destroy you while you're on stage is not going to do you any good. So if you can kind of be quick on your feet, and sometimes I have a few stock things in my head, but I was not prepared for a puppet's arm to fall off. I mean, what are you going to do about that? So and then taking that and running with it for the rest of the week, that taught me a lesson that sometimes the most unexpected things can just be a huge blessing to you and such a huge part of your show. And it can be a lot of fun. My dad used to go with me. My mother taught me ventriloquism and wrote my scripts. My dad would take me to the performances because I couldn't drive. I was just a little kid.
Oh, wow. You have super supportive parents. I love that.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. My dad, my mother's passed away, but my dad is 85, and we send him all the Nana Puddin clips, and he's like, "Oh, I love that piece. Oh, you should take that part out, but that's really funny," and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, my dad would stand in the back of the auditorium because I was 10, and my favorite thing to do was ad-lib. I love to ad-lib. So my dad would be in the back going like this. Like, wrap it up, or no, cut that, or like, no, because I was a 10-year-old, and sometimes, I might think something's funny, and I might not understand that it has 2 or 3 meanings,
right?
Like a 10-year-old speak.
Yeah, sure.
So being a person that liked to ad-lib, and kind of riff, really began to be a fun part of my journey. And it helped my characters and my programming to not always appear like it was all wrote, although it is written out beforehand, usually a year in advance, and then it gets rehoned and refixed and reshaped, and it morphs as I see the audience. Oh, they just don't get that. That's the hardest thing about doing Nana Puddin YouTube, is because I can't see the immediate reaction of the audience and go, oh, that's not working. Or oh, they think that's funny, or oh, they love that, or you don't have that immediate reaction.
Right. Wow. Well, could you? One of my favorite stories that you've shared with me in the past is one that related to the Vent Haven Convention and Scripture. Could you talk a little bit about that story? Share that with our audience.
Oh, yeah. I went to perform at the Ventriloquist Convention. Like I said, I was 16. And I went with another ventriloquist. He was in the junior division. I was in the senior division because I was 16. And I won 4th place, and he got 1st place in the junior division. And I got 4th place. And of course, that was hard. I was so happy for him, but I was upset with myself. So I got back to the hotel room and called my father, because that's what I do, And I said, Dad, he said, how'd it go? And I said, I got 4th place. And he was just elated. He was like, oh my gosh, Dennis, you got 4th place. That's awesome. But I was like, no, I was not happy with my performance, because again, I kind of realized that I was a dime a dozen ventriloquist. And my dad said to me, after he listened and listened and listened, and I was really griping, and I said, Dad, are you there? And he said, I'm just listening. And then he said, Dennis, and he calls me Benjamin. My father calls me Benjamin. It's not my name, but he calls me Benjamin. He said, Benjamin, that which does not grow great fruit in our journey, the Father will gently prune away. And I said, what? And he said, that which does not grow great fruit in our journey, that God the Father will gently prune away. And I thought, really? I mean, I just told you I won 4th place. I do not want to hear scripture right now. I am mad. I am upset. Do not quote scripture to me. Now, here's the fantastic part of that story. Years later, I wrote a book called The Great Grape Garden, which is based on John 15:5 from the New Testament. God is the gardener, Jesus is the vine, we are the branches growing great fruit all the time. And that which does not grow great fruit in our life, God will gently prune away, because he loves us, not because he hates us, not because he's trying to be mean to us, but because he loves us, and he's trying to cut away the dead branches so we'll grow and we'll be able to flourish, because that's what a good gardener does. And that's what a good father does. That's what a good God does. So I perform at the Ventriloquist Convention. I get the phone call from my dad. He gives me the scripture. Okay, 20 years pass. 20 years. Yeah. Are you listening?
Yeah.
20. Ray Rippey, my manager and partner at the time, gets a call from the Vent Haven Convention. Hey, we want Dennis Lee to come back and headline on the big night with 3 other ventriloquists. Will he do it? Absolutely. We're going to be in Illinois anyway, Dennis. We'll just jut down. Absolutely. So I did iFest in Kankakee, Illinois. And then we drove a long time in the wee hours of the night to get to the convention. We get to the convention, and it's there we are, right? And I come into the hotel lobby at the drawbridge. Is it still at the drawbridge?
No, they tore down the drawbridge.
So anyway, that's how old I am.
Finally, yeah.
But, I went to do and so I check in, and the kids are sleeping in the car and they're exhausted. And so the next morning I get up, I go do a workshop to teach a workshop, and then I rest that night, and then I'm going to go do the performance. So I'm really super excited. I hadn't been there in 20 years. I go step on the stage. I'm 3rd in the lineup, and the 2 ventriloquists before me had been kind of blue. And there were a lot of children in the audience because people heard that I was coming. And there are sometimes children in the audience anyway, but but they knew that I was going to be, and I was kind of known, the Nana Puddin Guy, children's performer, does family oriented church material and blah blah blah. So I do the performance. My children, Ray takes back to the hotel room, because it got so blue that he was like, okay, we gotta, okay, y'all cannot be in here to hear this.
Yeah.
So I'll bring you back when Dennis is on stage, and then you can sell the merchandise and stuff afterwards. Long story short, I do my program. Afterwards, there's a huge line. We sold totally out of all our DVDs, all materials that we had. We sold solely out. Sold totally out.
Yeah.
Now, that's not the great part of the story. The great part of the story is there's this woman, and she's waiting with her little boy off to the side. And I'm thinking, lady, what are you waiting for? I mean, I'm getting tired, And so she was just, because she wanted to talk to me. So she came up and she said, after everything's done, she said, Mr. Lee. And I said, yes. And she said, I brought my son, Jacob. And I said, oh, awesome. Oh, that's fantastic. Hi, Jacob, blah, blah, blah. She said, well, I had to take him out during the first two ventriloquists because it got a little above him, or, a little blue. Right. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. And she said, no, I brought him because, he wants to be a ventriloquist and he's seen your television show and la, 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 la. And then she said, and I just want to say thank you for kind of staying true to who it is that you are and what it is that you were kind of called to do, and speaking to families. And there's still being something funny for me as his mom in your show, but also that I don't have to worry about taking him out. Right. When you stepped on stage, I knew what I was going to get. Mm-hmm. And then she said, I just got to tell you something. And I said, oh, because that can be a scary thing when somebody says, just got to tell you something. She said, God is the gardener, Jesus is the vine, and we are the branches growing grapefruit all the time. And that which does not grow grapefruit in our journey, God will gently prune from us because he loves us. And I thought, what'd she say? And I just started crying. And she said, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Lee, I'm sorry. I said, no. I said, you have no idea. You have no idea what you have just told me. Yeah. And she said, well, yeah, I just was quoting John 15:5. I said, no. I mean, you know what you told me, but you have no idea what that means to me. Because 20 years ago, when I won the competition and my dad get on the phone and my dad gives me this, scripture. Mm-hmm. I said, I didn't understand what my dad was trying to say to me. And I said, and now here you are 20 years later with your little boy, and I'm back at this same exact event, and you are quoting to me this scripture about how God loves me enough to prune away the stuff that is not going to bear good fruit in my journey. As a young man, I did not understand what that meant. Mm-hmm. But now, at that time, and now, of course, I have been so blessed, lucky, fortunate, whatever you want to call it. I've not had to speak to people when they were inebriated or when they didn't really want to listen to me. I haven't had a lot of heckling. I haven't, not that I'm knocking any of those venues. I'm not. No. I'm just saying that God spared my journey and cut away the things that he knew I weren't going to grow great fruit in my life, and gave me the opportunity to pursue a path that literally just still makes me smile. And how many people can say that? And it was not God's displeasure with what I was doing. Mm-hmm. It was God's love for me that I believe caused him to be able to open my eyes and to see what a gift I had been given in the journey that I had been allowed to do and be a part of for all these years. So yeah, that's the story.
Oh my, there's so many amazing elements to that story. I mean, the fact that you hadn't been at the convention, and then you after 20 years you go back, and I remember the first time I heard that story, I teared up because I was like, wow, that's
It's just one day I'm in the process of, a good friend of mine, his name is Scott Wallace Luck. He's like my little brother. He's in the process of writing my story. He's been writing it since 2016 for all the things that people have not really known about me or understood about my journey. And that story is definitely going to be one of the stories that I just have to tell, because I am a man of faith, and my faith has seen me through the good and through the bad of each day, and has been a big chunk of me being able to speak to people, not just in church settings, but in all settings, to be able to tell them that there's hope for their lives and that there's someone who loves them, and to not give up, and to continue putting one foot in front of the other, and to not give up on your dreams, and all the things that we kind of say as trite little throwaway things. But that story, it's near and dear to me as well.
Well, that's absolutely phenomenal. And then today, with everything that's been going on lately, you've been working a lot on Nana Puddin Tube. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because that's been growing.
Because I'm just like everybody else. COVID-19, it put the world on notice, right? This awful thing that has cost so many lives worldwide, and so many lives in the United States, and still people, it seems, don't really understand the gravity of, wash your hands, stay home, wear a mask if you have to get out, take care of yourself. I have a heart thing, so I have to be careful. My dad's 85. I have to be careful. My sister's physically challenged. I have to be careful for the people that I love and for myself. You have to be careful. And
Definitely.
so the YouTube channel has come about. I already had a YouTube channel called Nana Puddin Tube. And really, I was thinking in the next 10 years, as I begin to continually slow down, I'll never retire, but I'll continue to slow down, to care for my sister as my dad ages, because Lisa is going to come to live with me at some point, and Tony, and we're going to take good care of her. The YouTube channel was something that we were going to really kind of focus on getting a viewership for over 10 years, kind of weaning people to it, and the fact that I wasn't going to continually, perform on stage, 450 shows a year for, okay, won't be able to do that when I'm 90, although you can roll me on the stage and I'll try. And so YouTube really, when the COVID-19 happened, we said, okay, we can either lay down and just quit, which, you can't, because I still have to be able to make money, and so do all the other performers and all the other people. You still have to figure out a way, and not just to make money, but to continue doing what it is that you've been called to do in the world. The money it's going to have to come to all of us some way, because we've got to pay our bills. But to not use the mouthpiece that you've been given to bring joy and happiness and encouragement to people, that would be a travesty. So Tony and I are on a schedule, and we write the schedule over the weekend, and then we do one day in the studio, and then I take the stuff and do stuff in the field without Tony, and that's fun for me, because I can be creative and kind of play and stay away from people. stay a long way away from people, and that's hard to do when you have a puppet at a park. But anyway, and then Tony edits, and then we put my music and stuff together, and we put them out. We put out one episode a day. We do Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday episode. Thursday we do a vintage vault, which is a music video, which is a throwback from my Nana Puddin show years. And then on Friday we do a fun day. This is going to be our new pattern, and we're trying to encourage teachers, children's pastors, and people who are just trying to continue to reach and teach their children to use us as a part of their learning, because they're sheltering at home. They might as well use us. So.
Wow. I love that. Could you adjust your mic a little bit? We're getting some. I want to make sure that we're not getting any feedback.
Can you still hear okay?
Yeah, I can still hear you. There's just some. I don't know if it's on my end. If our audience can still hear you. So do you have a character with you that you could bring out
Hey, come here. Come here. You've been so quiet. I'm surprised that you were so quiet. I'm so surprised that he was so quiet. I've got somebody you need to see. Yeah, you know who that is. That's Landon. That's Goodwill. Yeah, yeah. He's the one that made you. Yeah. This is Nana Puddin. Hello. And this is my mainstay character. And you were made by Landon Harvey. And what do I always tell you? What do I always tell you? Sit down, you gardening nuts. No. I said that one time at Chuck E. Cheese. Yeah. And it was haunted, by the way. Yeah. I love my new character. I love his hair. Thank you. Yeah. I love his eyes. Thank you. I love his tooth. Thank you. I love everything about it. Can you see better? I want to make sure they can see.
You might need to adjust your mic. I think someone else commented that your audio sounds like it's inside of a 10, like it's kind of rolling. So I'm not sure if maybe something disconnected on your end.
Did something disconnect? Well, I'll have the person who does. Is that better?
No, it's still there.
Well, I don't know. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed on our end. We took off one mic and we can plug it back in. See how it works. Plug it back in. Yeah. Anyway, this is the character that Landon made for me. This is my Nana Puddin character. Yeah. So good. How's that sound? Any better, Landon?
It's the same. It's okay. It might be on my end because of the stream. I'm not sure, but that's really great. I thank you for bringing him out. It's always neat to see, and how you dress him to fit the theme of your videos. And
oh yeah, that's part of the fun for us. Is me dressing him. I used to. Okay, you need to go sit with the nanny. You need to go sit with the nanny. I don't want to. Yeah, well you're going to. Anyway, sorry. He thinks that the camera gets out there, he's got to do a show. That's what used to be one of my favorite things to do, was to shop for my character's clothes. Of course, I was a young kid shopping for, like toddler clothes. And people would be like, you have a little brother? I'd be like, no. They'd be really super curious. And I was shopping for at stores. My son, Hunter, when he was little, I used to like dress him up in like these really bright overalls and stuff, and he'd be like, and I'd be like, look, you're only gonna wear it for about 3 weeks before you get too big for it, and really, it's for my puppet. So Hunter, we've got all these pictures of Hunter dressed up probably like a puppet when he dressed up.
Yeah, I get that in shopping for puppet clothes. I'm always bringing puppet bodies into local stores to make sure I get the right fit, and I had to show them when I did, so I didn't seem suspicious. But so in wrapping up here, what do you hope to see from the future of ventriloquism and from future school performers?
The future of ventriloquism. Wow. I hope that people continue to take the art and craft to all new levels. We are working in an audio visual portion of our program with lights. And next year, my program is called Zero Gravity, and it's talking about not letting things hold you down, which is really super appropriate given state of, right? I mean, that's a God thing for sure. I can't take any credit for a lot of this.
Anyway, Dennis Lee staying current once again.
Well, yeah, that's important, right?
Yeah.
And also to be able to talk to people. I had a really good friend. His name was Steve Sanderson. He traveled with me for a long time, and he was this really giant of a guy. He was really soft-spoken and so kind. And one day he said to me, isn't it funny that you write all your programs for you? And I was like, no, that's not really what I do. And he was like, well, oh, okay. So 2 years passed, and he said to me, hey, remember we had that conversation? And he said, am I your friend? And I said, of course you're my friend, Steve. I said, you don't just work for me. I mean, we're like buddies. We hang out like 24/7. We're always on the road. How could you even ask that? Yes, you're my friend. And of course, that was then followed by, well, I need to tell you something. That was, he said, remember I told you you write your shows for you and you didn't really think you did? And he said, well, today was the perfect example.
isn't it funny that you've spent, all these years talking to yourself, but really you've been talking to yourself. I mean, working out my own anxieties, working out my own, where people didn't accept you, or people put you down, or they said you didn't fit, or you didn't have a place in the church, or blah, 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 whatever it was. You're a little skinny, big-eared, high-voiced, puppet-loving boy. Working out my own salvation with fear and trembling by talking to myself. And literally, I've had the best therapy for, now going on 47 years. And I believe everybody should have a little therapy. I think it does the world good. But, I've had the chance to have that character on my arm kind of talking and
working through my own issues, and then hopefully being able to talk to children about that. And Tony keeps pointing. He wants you to see this. This is something I'm working on. We have a senior pastor at my church, Cathedral of Hope. Okay, I'm going to show you this. Can you see it?
Yes.
Can you see him? He's got at one point, this character looked like me, but now, of course, he doesn't look like me so much, but he looks like my senior pastor. So my senior pastor has a British accent. His name is Neil. And so I'm working on working that puppet into a
that's great. Oh, that'll be fun. I bet he's gonna love that. That's a great plug for knowing your audience.
and for sure, right?
Yeah,
I've been working a lot with my church of late. We have a great children's pastor. His name is Dan Peeler. He did a bunch of the designs for Chuck E. Cheese, and he's worked on television and a little bit of this, a little bit. He's 75 years old. I don't think he'd mind me telling that. And he and another guy named Charlie Rose, they do a lot of our children's programming, all of it really, at Cathedral of Hope, Dallas. And I've been privileged to be a part of the children's ministry really just since about January of this year. And so Tony and I go and we do programs for the kids, and we do it 2 Sundays a month. It's really, it's been such a blessing to me. I'm missing that because we're not able to get together with the
But it must be awesome. You mentioned Tony. It must be great having him do all your sound and all the technical stuff, and so you can rely on him for that because he's your technician.
I'll tell you how great it is to have Tony Britt. Tony he's upbeat and he's kind and he's honest, and if he doesn't know how to do something, don't worry. Because he will read a book, he will Google it, he will figure it out. That's what he's been doing with all of our editing for the Nana Puddin Tube.
Yes.
Literally, he got a new editing thing. It didn't cost a lot of money. He downloaded it, and you can see how the episodes are progressing because I'm going to create until you lay me in the ground. Really, I'm just going to, if I'm not creating something, I feel like there's something wrong. I got to paint. I've got to draw. I've got to do something with clay or make a puppet or do a show. Because if I'm not, I'm going to be in trouble.
And you did your background, didn't you?
Yeah, this one I did. I drew this. I painted it when my dad had throat cancer. And so I was taking care of my sister. She was staying with me at the time. And so I had a lot of time. We were just kind of sitting together because Lisa has cerebral palsy. And so we do a lot of that type of thing, things that she can do that I can do. And now we both, we need some sitting down time. But I drew it and I painted it. And I'm really super proud of it.
That looks great. It really does. Super neat. Well, Dennis Lee, thank you so much for being part of Landon Live and for sharing your story.
I have to say before I go, if you're looking for a character, the original Dummy Company and Landon Harvey, and if you're looking for the future of ventriloquism, you asked me about that, and I have the perfect answer. Young people like you, Landon, who are going to take the ball, continue to grow the art, take it in the direction that you want to go in it, and hang on to the authenticity and the integrity of who you are as people, and remembering all along the way that humor, as my mother taught me, does not have to hurt or be offensive or be foul to be funny. So I'm proud of you, and thank you for making me a part of your show.
Thank you for being a part.
You got it. So thanks for letting us come and be a part. We had a great time.
Yeah, thank you. And people can find you and Nana Puddin on YouTube at Nana Puddin Tube and on Instagram at Dennis Lee, right?
That's correct. And
Awesome.
you can drop us a letter at dennisleelive@gmail.com. I would love to, have feedback about, ideas that people are trying to teach their children, whether it's, how to wash their hands properly or, or how to be kind. So, and thank you for being kind to me and allowing me to be a part of this, Landon. Have a great night, guys.
You too. Bye-bye, guys.